FicLit presents Top 5 Reasons My Life Will Never Be a Fairy Tale by Sweetly Lethal. This is a Gallagher Girls one-shot, rated K, read by Nikki Allison. Chapter 1. Top 5 Reasons Why My Life Will Never Be a Fairy Tale. A detailed explanation by Zachary Goad. Fairy tales aren't real. Sounds stupid for me to make sure everyone knows this right off the bat. It seems so obvious, but not obvious enough, I guess. Because sure enough, the majority of the female population grabs on tight to the idea of losing a shoe on the way out of a big dance of some sort, trying to catch their ride before it turns back into a pumpkin. Let's face it, that's not going to happen. If you drop a shoe on your way out from my party, there is no way I'm going to search the country looking to and fro for anyone who wears a size 7.5. If you were really that important to me, I'd have your name and number in the first 10 minutes. Or, in all honesty, if I didn't happen to get your name and number, I'd just wait for the next time you come around. 'Cause, well, if you're worth it, I know you're going to come back. No, that's probably not the answer you're looking for. And before you start sobbing, let me once again emphasize, fairy tales are not real. And all of the cookie-cutter elements of the well-known fairy tale, yeah, they aren't real either. Yes, that means the royalty, the adventures, and the love at first sight. The happy endings, resulting in lots of money and a romantic ride off into the sunset. All fake. There's a reason why you find fairy tales on sale at Barnes & Noble, and if you aren't convinced quite yet that a prince isn't going to come out of nowhere and sweep you off your feet onto his white horse and take you off into the horizon, here's a fun fact for you. Half of the world has given up the monarchy system altogether. Except England, of course. But they've always been sort of out of the loop. But don't tell Cammy I said that, because then she'll tell Baxter. And Baxter can and will kick my butt. Don't tell Cammy that either. In conclusion, there aren't enough princes to go around. So give up the dream, girls. It's not going to happen. But don't get too discouraged, because in exchange for this awful letdown of your highest hopes, I'll let you in on a dirty secret. Guys want the fairy tale too. Maybe we don't sit around waiting for a prince to come sweep us off our feet. Well, most of us don't. But we do want the happy ending. Shocking, right? The possibly most fake and most improbable out of all the elements is the one we guys want most. And I mean, most of us get it, just because we find a way to make it happen. Maybe we're not exactly getting fitted for our own fancy crowns just yet. But as long as we find the girl, and she's ultimately happy, we consider it a success. So, if that's enough to satisfy you, I guess fairy tales might exist to an extent. But ever since I heard the story of Cinderella, or came across the tale of that Arabian guy with the magic carpet, I knew that my life specifically would never fall under the category. And that's for the following reasons. 1. First and foremost, there are never spies in fairy tales. And for good reason, too. Nothing about the spy world is suitable to put into a child's storybook. Clandestine missions to Brazil in order to cut off a rebel ring of prostitutes who threaten to overthrow the country's coffee sales for reasons that may or may not result in the transmission of a virus that would ruin the pleasure of your morning cup of joe, isn't really suited for the target audience of K through 3rd grade. Not to mention, our lives are too complicated. Too many people leave. Too many people die. Too many things happen for anything to work out perfectly. For the whole fairy tale plotline to take place without any strings attached, it's just impossible. 2. Where there's a prince, where there's a knight in shining armor, a hero, There's a bad guy, and despite the fact that there is always and forever will be an enemy, an opposing force, a villain, the villain never turns good, or rather, very rarely. Now, I have sympathy for the villain. Usually there's a backstory, a reason to why their moral compass is skewed. Maybe they were bullied as a kid. Maybe they were hurt, or wounded, or jealous. Or maybe they were misled. Maybe they grew up just trying to please the people around them. And maybe, unfortunately, those people were only pleased with deception and death. Either way, I know for sure that this reason is a big one. Because no matter what things I might have done in the past, the only thing I felt when she walked toward me was good. Gallagher girl! I addressed her snidely, hiding my smile with a smirk. Zach! She acknowledged me with a simple statement. I saw him let go of his link on her arm and stepped away, leaving us virtually alone. Or, well, it seemed like it. Well, you don't look horrible, I surveyed her, held back my breath, and shrugged. Her eyes gave me a look, just as they did the first time I had said those words to her, sophomore year, during an all-school dance that doubled as an exam. After all these years, she still didn't know whether to take that as an insult or a compliment. Rolling her eyes, Cammy looked away from me and to the man standing in front of us. But her dismissal of my behavior was one, in a way, I liked. It was one of innocence, despite all that she had seen. Though the look was meant to scold me, it's not like she looked at me like I was evil. It's not like I was the villain. Even though at one time, that could have been very close to the truth. But around her, I felt like as if there had been no transformation at all. As if I had never been any type of enemy, even though I had been. As any religious fairy tale reader knows, the bad guy stays bad, because the bad guy is strong enough not to let anyone change him, not even a girl. Unfortunately, I didn't meet that qualification. 3. There's a common recurrence in these situations, common, recurring characters. Evil stepmothers come up a lot, or the occasional evil emperor, king, queen, etc. Sometimes there's even a sister or two that's out to get you, but you don't usually hear about an evil family in general. A mother that's obsessed with power, a father who was never there, and no one else but a bunch of family friends and distant cousins who never gave you a second glance. Yeah, the whole sob story. The point is, an evil family is a little too much. It's overkill. I mean, really, if Cinderella had 2 more sisters, maybe even an evil dad, there's no way things would have panned out the way they did. So there's obviously gotta be an unspoken rule that says there can only be at most 3 truly evil relatives within a fairy tale. Too bad I exceed the maximum. 4. Nice turnout. I leaned to my left, closer to Cammy's ear. She flinched at the sound of my voice, then glanced toward the section of people behind me. A sort of sheepish apology appeared on her face as she looked at the space behind me, doubtingly. I suddenly glanced behind my shoulder at Grant and Jonas, sitting uncomfortably in their neckties, and to the crowd of people behind her, guests as far as the eye could see. Friends to fill the voids in her life, sisters to be there for her through the losses she has and will have. Cammy looked at my support group and saw a small quantity. Truth was, none of my twisted relatives needed to show up, and Grant and Jonas were just for show. Quite frankly, all I really needed was her, and I was set. So I reached the maximum for fairy tales when it came to messed up relationships. But if you count the ones that really mattered, the people I had left, I didn't even reach a minimum for one evil sibling, parent, step-parent, or acquaintance. My gang's all here, I responded to her glance of skepticism with a smile and a wink. Your side needs some work, though. Cammy's eyebrows wrinkled in confusion. I lifted mine in question. You're being nice, Cammy mumbled, her her gaze not budging from its fixed straight ahead. Nice? You haven't said anything to blatantly insult me, Cammy said from the side of her mouth. Yet. I just told you your group needs some work. Yeah, but you smiled. You were joking. Usually you... Her eyes glanced toward mine, then escaped, discarding the thought. I don't know. Settling for her lackluster explanation, I smirked at her, and then turned to the front. Maybe I am being nice, Gallagher girl, 'cause this is a nice occasion, I whispered as I received a flustered look from the man who stood in front of the two of us, as if he didn't know quite what to make of our talking in the middle of this procedure. If it's such a nice occasion, Zach, then why do you keep talking? I gasped in fake offense, keeping my voice low and undetectable by the guest behind us, while I leaned closer to her ear. Did Cammy Morgan, the girl who never shuts up, just tell me to? And there's the insult, she mumbled. Hey, She cut me a razor-sharp glare. Satisfied and amused by her irritation, I turned back to my expected position and smirked. The man relaxing with our silence, while pulling at his suit nervously, skeptical about just what deed he was doing. And maybe he should have been nervous. It was only probable for him to doubt, considering the circumstances, considering the final reason why you won't read about my life in a storybook anytime soon. 5. It's a universally well-known fact that's essential. The hero always has a love interest. The prince always finds his princess. It doesn't matter when, and it doesn't matter how, but it happens. And like I said, this is all any guy could ever hope for. Find the girl. Get the happily ever after. It wasn't until we turned to face each other and the man in front of us began to speak to the room that I tried her patience once more. Under my breath I spoke, smiled tauntingly, and asked, So, Gallagher girl, what are you going to do if I start talking? Gonna shush me again? That depends, she cut quickly, throwing her wit right back at me. Do you have the audacity to ruin everything by chatting away when we really should be shutting up? I snickered at the nervous tone in her voice, while the man's speech came to a close. I do, I said louder than expected. I could feel my face fighting off a smile, but Cammy's eyes just widened. She took a deep breath, and if I didn't know better, she looked extremely uncomfortable. And because of that look on her face, I couldn't help what happened next. Out of hidden insecurity, which I will not hesitate to deny, who on any other occasion, I focused on Cammy and questioned, Do you even want to be here, Gallagher girl? She looked up with surprise, as if I had caught the world's best up-and-coming operative off guard. She swallowed, exchanged a look between me and the man in front of us as he waited for her to finish our conversation, and then nodded softly. I do, she said, and with those words I knew the last and perhaps the most important reason why my life could never be a fairy tale. Redeemed or not, the bad guy doesn't get the girl. Ever. Mr. Goad, you may now kiss your bride, the man in front of us said, closing his book, giving a smile. The guests in the room held their breath, dried their tears, and watched as the ex-villain got what everyone knew he didn't deserve. I got the girl, and that's the only thing I had on my mind, her, as I wrapped my arms around her white dress, tilted her chin up, and met her lips with mine. And as cheesy as it sounds, as sappy and fluffy and even disgusting as it really is, right then I had no envy for the rich princes with their wives who can't keep their shoes on or resist an apple from creepy old ladies, no matter the number of diseases and or poisons she could be carrying. I wasn't jealous of the macho heroes who got to save their damsels, who seemed to always be in distress. Even though I was a spy, I had far too many relatives who couldn't be mentioned in front of an audience so young of age. My past was way too dark for a children's book, and considering that past, I wasn't supposed to be here, in a church, winning the prize, marrying the girl. Even though, because of all of this, my life would absolutely never, ever be anything like a fairy tale, I have to say, it's a heck of a lot better that way. This has been a FicLit audio presentation of Top 5 Reasons Why My Life Will Never Be a Fairy Tale by Sweetly Lethal. FicLit does not make any money from this story as it is a fan fiction. All rights belong to Allie Carter, the original author of Gallagher Girls. The music used in this intro and outro is by Lobo Loco. The book cover has been adapted from an image originally created by Bailey Girl 24. Links to all authors, artists, and musicians' work are provided in the description below. And as always, FicLit thanks you for listening.